We've got the latest on Hurricane Ian tonight. Welcome inside the comfy confines of the Channel 13 studios. That is the big story everybody wants to see and talk about tonight. Kelly's here, Felicia's here. We've got some video we want to put up on the screen so you can see what is happening right now in the southwest part of Florida right now. This huge hurricane that came ashore at 3 o'clock today has now knocked out power to 1.6 million people in Florida. It's turned these streets into rivers. You can see these cars, dealing with the high water right now. Came across as a Category 4, a monster storm, just shy of a Category 5. Kelly's going to get into that coming up in a moment, but we've talked about this storm surge the last couple of days. In some areas, it's as high as 6 feet or even more. You're going to see a lot more video tonight at 11 o'clock, but these images, Felicia, are just amazing to watch.
Absolutely stunning. I mean, we're seeing condo buildings where the water has already creeped up well into the first floor. I mean, I think everybody just trying to respond to it as best that they can, bracing themselves, protecting what belongings they do have. It's just, it's devastating, it's stunning, and you just feel for the people down there. We're talking billions and billions of damage. We know FEMA has already been in the mix in terms of what's going to happen as far as repair with this storm. But you've been tracking it. That's the thing. We're getting these images in. It's still going on right now.
Yes. I mean, as we've been talking about the past several days, this was going to be a slow-moving storm, just sitting and gradually moving off to the northeast, which is what it's doing right now. And of course, communication's also very difficult for people who do live there, and you're trying to get in touch with those people. Power is out in a good chunk of that southwestern portion of Florida. But taking a look at some of the areas that we're going to show you some video later on tonight. Placida, Florida, this area really hit by one of the very strong eye walls earlier today, and that time frame happened just at 3:05 for some of the strongest portions of the storm to move through the area. And here's a current look at it right now. Hurricane Ian, it is now down to a Category 2 with 100-mile-per-hour winds. The pressure's starting to rise a bit at 968 millibars, moving off to the northeast. And this is going to continue to track off to the northeast. But taking a look at some of the rain totals here, this is over the past 24 hours, and putting this in motion here. Venice has had over 13 inches of rain that has fallen so far. Arcadia also seeing the bulk of the heaviest rain. Port Charlotte also seeing that heavy rain, over 13 inches, and that's just so far. Backing up radar here at 2:50 this afternoon, and then at 3:05 is when they actually confirmed that the eye wall actually made it into landfall. That's what we look at, the actual center of the eye, to see if that actually, when it actually does arrive, that's when we consider that hitting landfall. So let's zoom in here a little closer to this area where the eye actually occurred, the center of it. If I can get this to advance, looks like it's stuck on me again. I'm having some technical issues. I'm going to step off, but I'm going to go ahead and advance this from another space bar. Hopefully I can get this to advance, because want to show you exactly where they determine, which I think is interesting from the National Hurricane Center. This was the area, the eye of the hurricane, and that was Cayo Costa area, where they determined that that was actually the eye of the hurricane and those eye walls. Now the wind has been catastrophic, and I put the velocity on here, and this is the last 8 hours, and you can look at the numbers there, some of them coming up. This is using the Tampa Bay radar, so it's not all the way farther enough south to get to Fort Myers on the velocity. However, you can still see over 100-mile-per-hour winds over Port Charlotte, Venice, in those upper 90s at times. And looking at the rain totals, this is also significant. This is over the past 24 hours, and that bright white, that's the area that we know is the very heaviest rain, and you can see some of that actually in the Gulf of Mexico, but that is just going to continue to get worse. Now, as I mentioned, the county outages percentage is also incredible. Many counties in that southwestern portion, including Lee County, that includes Cape Coral and Fort Myers, 98% of that county without power. All those areas in purple are between 80 to 100% without power, which is not a surprise. And unfortunately, with a storm system like this, it could take days or weeks before they can get that power recovered. I'll zoom in here a little bit closer again near Port Charlotte, Fort Myers, Cape Coral, those areas completely hit so tragically by this very strong hurricane, causing all those power outages. Now, as far as rainfall potential goes, as we mentioned, this storm is still slowly moving. 10 to 15 inches of rain will still be possible as this slow-moving hurricane moves over the peninsula of Florida. So it is a Category 2 hurricane with 100-mile-per-hour winds. So it is starting to lose intensity, which was expected. However, it is still intense with those 100-mile-per-hour winds causing a lot of damage. Over the next couple of hours, it'll start to weaken to a Hurricane 1, but still packing in winds of 85 miles per hour, then eventually steering over portions of Daytona Beach, and then it will finally go back out into the Atlantic, and it will spin out there and gain a little bit more strength before it starts to push off to the north and then west, and eventually falling apart. But here's a look at the storm surge. As we mentioned yesterday, we had that 9-foot storm surge, but want to slide up a little farther north. We knew this area was going to get hit pretty hard, and Tampa really missed out on the brunt of the storm, thankfully for them. But want to show you this storm surge forecast for South Carolina, because they're going to get hit by this tropical storm as it goes back out of Atlantic waters into inland areas along South Carolina. And this area can see 1 to 3 feet of storm surge, so not as significant, but still going to be a concern from Hilton Head all the way to Charleston over the weekend. Taking a look at our satellite, of course, you can see that massive storm moving over Florida. For us, for our weather here, we've been pretty quiet, just unseasonably cool. Temperatures in those upper 40s and low 50s. And 24-hour temperature change, not as drastic anymore because we are getting closer to the low of what we had yesterday. The winds, thankfully, have died down quite a bit. They are going to continue to die down overnight, and that's going to allow for some patchy frost to develop because temperatures are going to fall into the upper 30s and low 40s. Here's a look at those forecasted temperatures into the low 40s in Indy. Outside of that area, into the upper 30s, perhaps even some mid 30s, and that's likely going to cause some patchy frost to develop. As we go into the afternoon Thursday, we'll see those temperatures rebounding nicely into the upper 60s. So it is going to be a much better outlook as we go into Thursday afternoon. I'll go ahead and take you to the 7-day forecast. I'll go ahead and scroll down since I'm having some computer problems, guys. But we'll show you that 7-day forecast, and we are going to finally get back to 70-degree weather by Friday. That's still below average for this time of year. This weekend, we will see temperatures back into the low 70s, but the remnants of Ian will have some impacts likely here locally, mainly in the form of extra clouds on Sunday and some breezier winds on Sunday, possibly into Saturday, depends on how fast it speeds up, but right now I'm not going to see any precipitation out of it.
Okay, so remnants perhaps on Sunday, so we'll have to just kind of wait and see.
Yes.
Tell us what the people in Florida should be expecting here over the next, several hours, of course, as this storm slowly moves across the state.
Right. Eventually, it's going to get to the Orlando area, and that's going to have major impacts. A lot of flooding expected with it, very heavy rainfall, and those winds will still be upwards of 85 miles per hour when it gets to Orlando area, and then pushing off to Daytona Beach. So that backside of that system is going to still tap into a lot of moisture, so still going to see a bit of a storm surge perhaps on that eastern side, nothing like we've seen on the southwestern side, but certainly the heavy rain, flooding, and the strong winds.
Well, it's incredible to see the images from. I will say we've had a lot of Hoosiers come back to the state of Indiana seeking refuge from the storm. We also have had a lot of Hoosiers go down to Florida and the surrounding area. They're waiting, they're on standby to be able to respond. We actually spoke with some linemen today from utility company. They work here, but they have volunteered to go down to the state of Florida. They're in Marietta, Georgia, and they are going to report to Orlando tomorrow. So they are on standby to help secure the Orlando area. And then from there, the lineman said, equipment operator said that they're just going to go wherever the utility company down there sends them. They just start taking tickets as soon as the storm is clear and they're getting the all safe. They start repairing power.
And you know how busy they will be if they've got 1.7 million Floridians without power. Those linemen are going to be very, very important. Indiana Task Force 1 is in the northern part of Florida right now. They're waiting for the storm to pass, and that they will go ahead and move down into the southwest region if they are needed there. You know, we've done stories about Indiana Task Force 1. These are search and rescue operators. They go home to home checking for people. And we have seen some video from our affiliates in the Fort Myers area of some rescues taking place as people who decided to wait it out and ride the storm out need to be rescued tonight. So
They'll be doing 16-hour days, 16-hour days to get it done.
They are such hard workers, the Indiana Task Force. And I remember one of the significant things they did recently was the St. Louis flooding. And they said that was some of the most catastrophic scenes that they'd ever witnessed, which says a lot because they go to so many of these, and hopefully they won't, you know, they won't see as much destruction as the flooding there in St. Louis, but nonetheless, you know.
I was going to say, I wonder if that's because Florida is more prone to flooding and hurricanes versus St. Louis.
True.
You don't think?
Yes.
Just curious there.
we actually have a producer that is hanging out in the Walt Disney World area, having to sort of hunker down, isn't able to really go out as you know they wait for the storm to pass. So folks that were planning on a family vacation at Walt Disney World, they're having to hunker down and stay away from the storms. Getting a lot of people tonight at 10 o'clock praying for the people in Florida. Dora saying, my sister left Orlando this morning to get away from it. She's now safe in Tennessee, heading home to Indiana. Let's see, we've had a couple of other people mentioning this. Carolyn saying she's sending hugs to friends and family. No power, 180 mile per hour guess. Did it get as high as 180 mile per hour?
Not that I saw.
Yeah, 150 was basically the top winds there. Gail says, we live in Indiana, but we have a house in Punta Gorda. Not sure if it's still standing, praying for everyone in the path of the storm.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, thinking about their friends, and a lot of Hoosiers travel to Florida. This is a popular tourist destination. We know the area. We know a lot of the friends and family down there, and we're hoping everybody is okay as this storm marches through. So, all right, so Kelly's going to go ahead and continue tracking this for you tonight at 11 o'clock. We have a lot more video that we're going to show you, showing the flooded streets and a lot of the damage. You'll see that tonight at 11 o'clock. Hope to see you then over on Channel 13. Good night.